Hey guys, welcome back to Remove Before Race. I'm your host Raz. Check out the weather. It is absolutely shit, but we've got something to make up for it. Probably the most popular AMG on my channel, or at least the one that I've featured the most. We're looking once again today at the great GLE 53 4MATIC Plus. Now, why have I come back to this car again? Well, today I get to show you some things that I haven't been able to in the past. Firstly, the cars that we tested previously were either press cars or pre-production cars or whatever. So this is a fully complete UK car, UK Euro specification exhaust, etc. So we are going to see what the car actually sounds like after production, because I've got some trust issues with press cars, let's just put it that way. Next, this is the first GLE 53 that we have had, which hasn't got the AMG Dynamics package on it. So it hasn't got the larger brakes and a few other features inside. So you get to see what kind of a bog standard version of the car that most of us would probably buy performs like. And finally, this is finally the first GLE 53 I've got my hands on after all this time that's got the awesome 7-seat option. So I get to show you how good that is inside as well. And finally, I'm going to show you what this car sounds like versus the GLE 63S, and you'll get to see what that V8 sounds like and what that car's design is like versus this. And the great thing is, both of them are brilliant blue. So let's take a look at this, the new GLE 53 in 7-seat form. So guys, before we start, today's sponsor is a driving shoe brand that I've used on the channel for over 2 years but never mentioned to you guys. It is indeed Pilotti driving shoes, and I was keen to introduce them as soon as I had an offer to bring you guys in as well, and I've done just that. Now, why have I used these shoes so excessively? Now, most people think that driving shoes are just for driving, but just like a performance car is better at daily tasks like accelerating, braking and turning than a standard car, driving shoes are better at everything than normal shoes as well. They have 24-hour comfort showcased by my excessive usage of them, and you get much better heel, toe and general pedal feel out of them as well. Now, the great thing is my offer coincides with the launch of a brand new shoe, especially for you AMG and hypercar addicts. It is the Pagani Legacy S shoe, which is designed to look just like a Pagani car. Everything from the iconic headlights, which are actually the eyelets for the laces, to the use of real carbon fiber, Pagani shapes all round, the typical Pilotti tire tread sole, and all the details on here are absolutely gorgeous, available in 3 different colors too. For me, I think it's their best looking shoe yet, and I'm so happy that I could bring a brand that I have so much love for as a channel sponsor and to get you guys a discount. So use that code RBR15 site-wide and get one of these awesome driving shoes. More Pilotti on the channel soon. So guys, GLE 53, we've been through the internals so many times in the past. Quick refresher for you guys, typical 53 AMG flavor in this. So we have that lovely inline-6 engine, which produces 435 brake horsepower, and you get the extra EQ boost element within that, which gives an extra 22 HP and some torque as well. And not just some torque, we're talking another 250 Newton meters. 0 to 60 is only 5.3 seconds. Now that's pretty common within this class of car. We'll have to see later whether it feels fast enough on the open road or not. The other standout feature is the AMG Active Ride Control suspension, which has 2 actuators that work independently of each other on the front and the rear axle, and these give electronic roll stabilization, helping stop that typical roll you get in a large SUV, and it also allows the wheels to react within 1,000th of a second to road conditions, and you get this awesome screen inside that kind of shows you just how detailed it really is and how well it works. Now, unlike its competitors, the SUV is actually slightly longer than the coupe in its wheelbase. The coupe we tried out as well, but of course, the big differentiation in this generation is how the coupe only has 5 seats, and you can actually get the 7-seat option in this car, which we're going to explore later. After that comes the big boy, the GLE 63S. Luckily, I saw it in the exact same spec, and this comes with that lovely 4-litre V8 bi-turbo, producing 612 brake horsepower again, but like in the 53, we also get that EQ boost within this car. So another 22 brake horsepower, additional torque, that's going to make this extremely exciting. Now you want to see what it looks and sounds like, I'm going to show you that directly at AMG later. First, let's take a quick look around the outside of this car, just refresh our memory on what the GLE 53 looks like externally, and then I'll show you the GLE 63. So guys, the main thing with the GLE 53 has to be the front end, which is exceedingly AMG-like thanks to that main grille, as you can see. The lower half is the only bit that really changes in the 63, but unless I show you, you're not really going to notice the difference. So luckily I'm going to show you in a minute. Now, the other big change for the grille is you get an extra circle around the star, which is the only change you'll see against other AMGs. I really do like the fact that you still get the E-Class family lights, even though they don't exist on the E-Class with the double brow. Love that feature in this car. You can see the brakes here are the smaller brakes. Now, they look almost like the rear brakes on a normal AMG. You can't get the Dynamic Plus packet in the UK, so of course you get the multi-spokes just like in the 63 as well. On the rear you've got the round pipes, which kind of harken back to the C63 of old, well, not my Black Series, but the 204. You've also got some lovely indentations on the inside of the pipes and AMG lettering on the outside, so looking better than the original 53s. You will see in a minute that that's really the only change versus the 63, which pretty much has the exact same rear as this car. Compared to the design of the previous GLE, AMG really amped up the look of this 53 on purpose to really make it seem like a proper AMG. And we found on our first drive that it does seem to drive that way as well. We're going to reconfirm whether that's the case today. So that should have refreshed your mind on what the GLE 53 looks like. Now let's head to a Affalterbach and see the new GLE 63S. Welcome back to Affalterbach, my friends, and to the GLE 63S. You can see the differences are all going to be basically on the lower front end. Here you can see that you've got a different mouth, particularly highlighted by the chrome grille around the intakes, and the intakes are more open. So there you go, that's really the only change on the front, meaning a big difference to the previous generation where the grilles were different. Here the grilles are absolutely identical. Yes, the 63 a little bit more aggressive, but not by much. On the rear, small changes, only the quadrupedal tailpipes and a few changes on the lower diffuser. So as I said, the differences now between the GLE 63S and the GLE 53 are that much less compared to the last generation. So now let's actually see what this sounds like in comparison to the 53, and we'll put the car straight into race mode. So guys, now you've seen the GLE 53 and 63 and what the two of them sound like in comparison to each other. Now I want to show you the 7-seat option inside here, and I also want to show you a few choice things from MBUX that I really love about this car that I haven't seen in other Mercedes. So let's go inside before we do the big drive. So guys, back in the GLE 53, UK version, production version. Now in the UK, we don't get the AMG Dynamics package, so it leaves some of the AMG bits of the interior a little bit sparse looking. For example, I guess the main thing has got to be the lack of the AMG controls on the steering wheel. And they really are missing when everything else outside looks completely AMG. I do wonder if they can be retrofitted. So if you know of anyone who's doing it or has done it successfully, let people know down in the comments, because I get so many messages about this. Like in the UK, we also don't get it on A35s, etc. I understand why, because you're kind of keeping the 53s away from the 63s, which I think a lot of us would like worldwide, but then it kind of kicks you in the nuts knowing someone in Germany can have those buttons, but in the UK you can't. So, I'm torn, but I understand both sides. Similarly, you don't get the full dynamic of steering wheel either, which is less of a problem because you can probably get that retrimmed. So everything else is fine. Everything else is all AMG. You have to then control your exhaust, etc. From this section over here, we've got the exhaust, we've got the suspension, ESP off, manual mode, or if you go into individual, as you've done in the past via dynamic select, then you can go into the menu here and completely configure it as you want. So then it's just one click away rather than having to do anything here or with the steering wheel. Of course, you get the coolest AMG screen of any car still within this 53, which is the Super Sport display with 3 separate configurable areas you can do via the steering wheel. Now, these areas are great. Even in the new S-Class interior that I previewed, you can only change one area, which was the middle on that car. On this previous system, you can change all of it to suit you, which I still think is the right way of doing it we'll have to see what the future brings. But yeah, you can completely make that your own. You still get the other designs as well, but in an AMG, you really want super sport display, don't you? The other clever thing about MBUX in this is the vocal assistant, and in the GLE, it's great because it knows who's talking in which seat. So if I, the driver, talk and say, "Hey Mercedes,
how may I help you?"
and then I start talking, you see this glow on the right-hand side, which means it's me. But if it was the passenger, the glow would be on the left. So it knows who's asking, for example, for a massage. And it's all contextual, so you don't really need to tell it who's talking, which is great. Now, in the past, whenever you'd use the word Mercedes, the system would suddenly wake up and say, "Hey, what's up?" But I can seem to get away with saying Mercedes without it saying anything. I guess they fixed that. Wow, that's great, because that was really annoying. The interior is nice. It's black Nappa with Dynamica, as you'd find in a lot of AMGs. I don't like black interiors myself, but it's good that it's Nappa leather. It's good that it's Dynamica. You get red seat belts, which I like, but for some it would be an odd choice. You would expect maybe some red stitching or something else to go along with it, and there isn't. Next, let's check out the rear seats, because there's so much space both in the second row and in the rear row. Now, checking out the rear of the GLE, second row, we've actually got seat controls, which is a first, which makes this all the more customizable. I've put a huge Recaro car seat in there, so you can see just how much room you still have, and that's in the forward position. You can see the seat is forward there. That can go further back, like this seat is, and then the party trick has to be, see, a push of the button will get the seat back, and then we check out the third row. You can see there we've got some pretty decent space. That's with this forward position here, so you'll have a little bit less when it goes back. But you've got full-size headrests, you've got USB-C plugs, and 2 cup holders in the middle as well. And generally, it's pretty well appointed. But to really show you the space in there, I want to get a much larger person in. So let's get Jamie in the back and show you how much space he has. So we managed to squeeze Jamie into the rear seats of the GLE. How is it back there?
Squeeze.
Squeezed?
Yes.
Yeah, but you are decently. What's your height?
6 foot.
Well, there you go. You got a 6 foot man, boy, man, child, something sitting in the rear there. That's impressive.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Not bad.
Now, finally, let's turn this car on. I want to show you what the GLE 53 sounds like in the UK. AMG Motion Start, get ready to hold the pedal when you're pushing the start button to get the louder exhaust noise. That sounds bloody brilliant. Probably better than the press car we drove. Now, let's see what it sounds like when I'm driving a lot faster on the open road. Potentially the ideal conditions that I'd want to be testing something like this car in. Rainy day, 4MATIC Plus, nice amount of power for road use, 429 brake horsepower plus, you know, that hybrid element. I'm a really big fan of this engine. I've driven it many times, and every time I've driven it, it's become better over time, each iteration. So I tried it first in whatever E53 it was, very quiet, no performance exhaust, but you know, good response. The hybrid element of the EQ boost, really cool. That initial hit of torque that you get is great. Latter versions, particularly the last of the GLE that I tried with performance exhaust, really quite exciting and close enough to kind of what you find in GT63, etc., in terms of a few pops and bangs that you get. So like I said, really nice conditions to test out the daily element of this. Now, for an AMG addict, daily element doesn't mean that I'm just going to be driving this around like Miss Daisy. It also means driving dynamically when you want to go into Sport Plus and make things a little bit more exciting. So the first thing I'm going to do, because it's really important for any AMG addict, is to explore the sound. So I've gone into Sport Plus now. Valves are fully open, ECU is tuned up for giving pops and bangs, etc. Can you hear them already? There are some loud bangs in this car. Listen to that. I would say that's as loud as my GT63 potentially. The upshift is lovely as well. If you shift up around about 4,500 revs, you get a really nice kind of crunch, ka-chunk, a bit of the old A45, which is nice, and it doesn't feel like the initial versions of this engine at all. See, now I could buy this, and I would not miss the 4-litre V8 bi-turbo, because in this age of engineered sound, that sounds close enough to it. Wow. There are some loud bangs that come out of this car. I would love to get a valve control module in something like this to allow those valves to stay open all the time, not just when we're driving fast, because I think this engine would sound bloody good. Like I said, lovely upshift. So I don't think I would miss the 63 in that sense. Plus, as we said, 7-seat option, nice sound. That's a lot of the AMG flavour already. The next part of an AMG daily has to be, it's got to be dynamic. It can't just be a boat, which, you know, the old GLE 63S certainly was, despite sounding so bloody good, that V8. Now this is by no means a boat. I mean, the engineers who worked on the GLE, if you remember the co-drive that we did, one thing that they were exceedingly proud of was the work that they've done on the chassis and the suspension of this car. And really, when I compare this car to the old one for other people, I'm kind of saying, look, you should expect something a lot closer to GLC in terms of the way that this thing can handle itself. It corners so much more flat than the old car. We know it's got that much more reactive suspension, the AMG suspension in this, on a completely different level, and you really feel it because you're able to turn and maneuver this car in a completely different manner compared to the old one. So many people ask, well, what's the difference between this and the GLE 450? You know, the power isn't that difference. Am I really getting any AMG flavour out of it? Well, first on the sound, definitely, because you're going to get none of that in the 450. And secondly, you've got all the dynamism that AMG have thrown into this that, frankly, just isn't in the standard car. Now, I'll be the first to tell you that it is no Cayenne GTS, but equally, Cayenne GTS isn't going to get 7 people in the back. Nor will it handle itself with the ease in daily use that this GLE 53 will. So, horses for courses. What's your usage between two cars that are quite similar on paper? To finish that point off, you have to imagine the old GLE handled more like a GLS compared to this car, and this car more towards the GLC, and I can't really give it higher praise. Again, for a mid-tier car, I'd really like to see what the 63 handles itself like. I would expect that to be a significant notch above, because I can't see power alone isn't enough to justify that car anymore for me, not when this is so brilliant. Speaking of power, the engine is nice, as I said, it's really quite reactive. You got that EQ boost element in it. But as far as the speed goes, it's not the quickest AMG in the world, and I think the issue you will have is kind of, I'll try to show, there is a bit of delay here. I'm in Sport Plus, but still, there's a lot of noise, but the car isn't quite getting the pace there. And that's one area where you will really, really appreciate, I think, the GLE 63S. If you're looking for out-and-out speed and power, the GLE 53 is not going to do that for you. It's going to give you nice AMG sound, it's going to give you decent dynamics because AMG have worked hard at it, but it's not going to give you the power and the speed that you would expect of a large AMG SUV traditionally. Undoubtedly, the engine is responsive, undoubtedly the EQ boost is great, the torque is great, but you are feeling really underpowered in a lot of occasions. But as I said, that's just one part of it. We want to talk also about the comfort element. Now, it's a supremely comfortable car, this. We are on the biggest wheels that you can get, as we said. Spec options very limited in the UK. And regardless of that, very comfortable. I'm going to switch the display here from the performance one to the vehicle ones. There are some really useful displays now in MBUX. One of my favorite is this display that shows the terrain of the vehicle underneath you, and it's live. And you can see the little lines that are moving, showing you exactly what the terrain underneath you is like. And that gives you an idea of how good the suspension is, how reactive it is on each wheel, because it gets all that information and it can react, as we said in the past many times, in milliseconds in order to deal with the terrain. And that's partly why this is so comfortable in daily use, but secondly why it's so good dynamically as well, because it can react that much faster. Coming to a stop in this mode, the engine is on at the moment, and it's so quiet. And it kind of does that, I'm almost whispering on it, it kind of does that two worlds of being a normal Mercedes-Benz and an AMG really well. Because look, I could set off now. That's exhaust on if we turn that off for a second. Really quiet, really comfortable. Noise from outside is hardly discernible. And it's just a normal Mercedes-Benz. Switch MBUX into classic mode. You would not be able to tell it from a diesel. Consumption's okay, not too bad. When you're driving it like a lunatic like I am, I probably can't judge it at this point. It's comfortable, it's easy to steer, the technology inside is brilliant. The other great thing is augmented reality navigation. What that does is, the car has a camera in front, so you get a live feed of what's in front of you, and then the car superimposes augmented reality information on top of that for your navigation. For example, we've got these arrows that tell me which junction I need to turn off at, what side of the road I need to be on, where I need to turn, and it just adds to the navigation experience, just making things easier for the driver, particularly when you're in an area that you're not familiar with. So in conclusion, driving the GLE 53 in the UK has left me all the more impressed in its daily ability. I love the idea of a 7-seat AMG. This is the only 7-seat AMG that you can get in the mid-tier. You have to go up for the GLS 63, you can't get the GLE 63 in 7 seats. So in that sense, it's a bit of a unique car in the lineup that does a lot of things for someone who needs a bit more space without going to the crazy levels of the GLS. In that sense, it's a bit unique in the AMG lineup that gives you a really good 7-seat daily AMG that's not the ugly GLB 35 or allegedly 45 that's coming, and it doesn't go to the crazy cost of the GLS, but it gives you a lot of AMG flavour in a car that's more than capable in handling, really good AMG sound, and you can have your 7 seats, you can have your cake and eat it. But equally as impressed as it's left me, it leaves me wanting to try the GLE 63S because it could use more power. So guys, I hope you've enjoyed this full review of the GLE 53 here in the UK. I hope you found it useful. If you have, please do like, subscribe, click that bell icon, and as usual, I'll see you again soon.